The fluorescent lights above my hospital bed buzzed like angry wasps. I'd been fighting pneumonia for 6 days when the nurse leaned close enough that I could smell her peppermint gum. "Sir," she whispered, glancing toward the hallway. "I need to show you something about your intake forms." She held an iPad, zooming in on a document. There it was, the financial responsibility section. Next to relationship to patient, someone had checked the box marked, "Not a family member." Below that, a signature I'd recognize anywhere. The same loops and curves I'd taught my daughter Jessica when she was 8 years old, practicing cursive at our kitchen table. "Your daughter signed this when she brought you in," the nurse said carefully. "She told admissions you weren't related. That means she won't be held responsible for any bills insurance doesn't cover." The room tilted. My chest felt tighter than the pneumonia had ever made it. 43 years of being her father, and she'd erased me with a single checkmark. The monitors beside me beeped faster. The nurse put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Do you want me to file this as is?" she asked softly, her eyes full of the kind of pity that makes you feel smaller. I stared at Jessica's signature until my eyes burned. Those neat letters, each one perfectly formed. I'd been so proud when she finally mastered them. Now they looked like tiny knives cutting through everything I thought we were to each other. "The financial responsibility box," the nurse explained gently. "It determines who gets billed for anything insurance won't cover. By marking not a family member, she's legally stating you're strangers." I nodded slowly, like a man who hadn't just discovered his whole life was a lie. My throat felt raw, but not from the infection. Inside my chest, something colder than February ice was forming where my heart used to be. The nurse waited, probably expecting tears or anger. But I'd learned long ago that sometimes the deepest cuts don't bleed right away. They freeze first. "Leave it," I said, my voice steady as my hands. "File it exactly as she signed it." The nurse hesitated. "Are you sure? We could correct." "No corrections." I looked at the date beside Jessica's name. Tuesday, December 3rd. The day after she'd called to check if my life insurance was still current. I understand perfectly. Jessica arrived Thursday afternoon with grocery store carnations wrapped in cellophane, the kind you grab from a bucket by the checkout. She swept into my room like she was doing me a favor, all bright smiles and careful distance. "Dad, you're looking better." She set the flowers on my bedside table without putting them in water. "The doctors say you'll be out soon." Her voice dripped honey, but her eyes were doing math, calculating something. I'd seen that look before. When she was 16 and wanted car keys. When she was 25 and needed a house down payment. "Thank you for coming," I said, watching her fidget with her purse strap. She patted my hand like I was a dog she didn't particularly like, but had to pet for appearances. Of course. Family takes care of family, right? The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. "So," she said, settling into the visitor's chair, but keeping her coat on. "Have you given any thought to your arrangements? You know, just in case things don't go as well as we hope." There it was. The real reason for the visit. "Your will," she continued, casual as discussing weather. "It's still the same, right, Dad?" "I'm still." Looking at Jessica's expectant face, I tasted memories like copper pennies on my tongue. The night she had measles at age 4, 103-degree fever that wouldn't break. I'd held her in a lukewarm bath, while my wife Grace pressed cool washcloths to her burning forehead. We'd prayed to every god we could name, making bargains with the universe. "Please," Grace had whispered over our sleeping daughter. "Take anything else, but leave us our baby." That little girl had grown into this woman in front of me, checking her phone while asking about my will. Grace had been dead 12 years now. Cancer took her when Jessica was 31, old enough to know better, young enough to still need her mother. I studied my daughter's face, searching for any trace of the child who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms. Her features were Grace's, same hazel eyes, same stubborn chin. But Grace would never have done this. Grace, who used to make extra sandwiches for the hungry kids at the library where she worked. Grace, who tutored half the neighborhood for free because education shouldn't have a price tag. When Jessica left after 20 minutes, "Important meeting," she said. I stared at the ceiling tiles and chose silence over the scene that would change nothing. At 2 in the morning, the cardiac ward turned into a symphony of machines. Ventilators whooshed, monitors beeped, and somewhere down the hall, another old man coughed himself awake. But I wasn't sleeping. I was thinking. The form kept floating behind my eyelids. That checkmark. not a family member. Like I was some stranger she'd found on the sidewalk and dragged to the emergency room out of basic human decency. I turned the thought over like a river stone, feeling all its edges. At first, it cut deep. Then it just felt smooth and cold. Love wasn't supposed to look like this. Which meant maybe this wasn't love at all. And if it wasn't love, then my legacy, everything I'd worked for, saved for, sacrificed for, couldn't go to her. The decision formed like frost on a window, slowly at first, then all at once. Clear and crystalline and absolutely certain. I pressed the call button. When the night nurse appeared, I asked for the phone. "It's 2 in the morning, Mr. Hayes. Are you sure?" "I need to call my lawyer," I said. Now. She must have heard something in my voice because she brought the phone without another word. "Tom, it's Walter Hayes." My lawyer's voice came through groggy but quickly sharpened when he heard mine. "Walt, it's the middle of the night. Are you okay? I'm in the hospital. But that's not why I'm calling." I kept my voice low, steady. "I need to change my will." The pause on the other end stretched like taffy. I heard him shift, probably sitting up in bed. 23 years we'd known each other. He'd handled Grace's estate, our house refinancing, every legal document that mattered. "Walt, what happened?" I told him about the form. About the box checked, not a family member. About my daughter's signature claiming we were strangers. The words came out clinical, like I was reading a diagnosis. "Jesus," Tom breathed. "Jessica did that?" "Her handwriting. Her signature. The hospital can verify the date and time." Another pause. I heard a pen clicking. Tom always thought better with a pen in his hand. "Are you sure about this?" he asked carefully. "I mean, are you absolutely certain you want to?" "I'm certain," I said. "But I don't want drama. No confrontation. No big scene. Just a different ending to the story." "Then where should your life's work go?" "Grace," I said, and just speaking her name made the sterile hospital room feel warmer. "I want to create something in Grace's name." Tom's pen scratched against paper on the other end. "Tell me about her." Where to begin? Grace had spent every Saturday at the public library, not just working but teaching. Kids would show up with homework they didn't understand and parents who couldn't help. She'd sit with them for hours, patient as sunrise, until the confusion cleared from their faces. She bought textbooks with our grocery money, I said. Cooked extra food for study groups that weren't even ours. Kids would show up at our door at all hours, and she'd never turn them away. I could still see her at our kitchen table, surrounded by teenagers drowning in algebra, making it all make sense. She'd feed them first, said hungry brains don't learn, then dive into whatever subject had them stumped. A scholarship fund, I said, the idea crystallizing as I spoke. The Grace Hayes Memorial Scholarship. For kids who need what she gave. Not just money for books, but someone who believes they deserve them. A scholarship fund. Tom's voice carried new energy. Make it official. Make it permanent. Make it everything she was. Tom and I sketched the structure over the phone while the hospital slept around me. Who would qualify? Students from our neighborhood. The ones working 2 jobs while trying to finish high school. What it would cover. Not just tuition but books, supplies, even food cards because Grace always said you can't study on an empty stomach. We'll make it renewable, Tom said, his pen scratching faster now. Grades stay up, the help continues. Just like Grace would have done, consistent support, not one-time charity. No plaques, I added. She hated those donor walls where rich people bought their names in brass. This is about opportunity, not recognition. We'll set it up through the Community Foundation, Tom explained. They'll handle the administrative side, but you'll set the criteria. We can name specific schools, specific counselors who knew Grace's work. I thought about the kids she'd helped over the years. Maria, who became a nurse. Jerome, first in his family to graduate college. Dozens of others who still sent Christmas cards addressed to Mrs. Grace, even though she'd been gone over a decade. We'll need updated documents and witnesses, Tom said. I can have everything ready by Monday. Soon. I left the hospital on Saturday, December 7th, weaker in body but stronger in purpose. Jessica had offered to pick me up, but I called a cab instead. Told her I didn't want to be a burden. The irony of that word, burden, seemed lost on her. My house felt too quiet without the hospital's mechanical symphony. But the silence gave me space to think clearly. Jessica called that evening, voice bright as fake silver. Dad, you sure you're okay alone? I could come by, bring dinner? I'm fine, I said, looking at the pile of legal documents Tom had messengered over. Just need rest. Well, if you need anything. She let it trail off, and I let her. We both knew she wouldn't come unless there was something in it for her. That was the truth neither of us would speak aloud. Tom had scheduled our meeting for Monday morning. 2 days to sit with my decision, he'd said. 2 days to be sure. But I'd never been more sure of anything since the day I'd asked Grace to marry me. My hands had stopped shaking the moment I'd said her name to Tom. This wasn't about revenge. It was about putting love where love belonged. Monday, December 9th. Tom's office smelled like leather books and strong coffee. The papers were stacked in neat mountains across his mahogany desk. Each one represented a piece of my life being redirected from the daughter who'd disowned me to the students who'd carry Grace's spirit forward. Let's go through this carefully, Tom said, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Total assets to be transferred to the Grace Hayes Memorial Scholarship Fund. The house on Maple Street, valued at $450,000. Your investment portfolio, currently at $380,000. Life insurance policy, $200,000. Savings and checking accounts, roughly $70,000. Over $1 million. 47 years of work, saving, investing carefully. All of it had been meant for Jessica. Now it would go to kids who'd appreciate what Grace would have given them freely if she'd lived. Initial disbursements. Tom asked. $20,000 per year, divided among recipients. Full ride for community college or partial for university. Books, supplies, everything covered. My signature started shaky on the first document, then steadied. Each page felt less like an ending and more like a door opening. Grace would have loved this. Do you want to notify your daughter? Tom asked carefully. No, I said, setting down the pen. No notifications. No confrontations. This isn't about punishing Jessica. It's about placing the money where it belongs. Tom nodded slowly. I understand. But Walt, she'll expect. She'll expect what she's always expected. Everything handed to her. I picked up the pen again. Grace and I failed her somehow. Made her think love was measured in dollars. But I won't compound that failure by funding her delusions. We drafted the key clause that changed everything. Where it once read, Beneficiary, Jessica Marie Hayes, it now read Beneficiary. The Grace Hayes Memorial Scholarship Fund, administered by the Community Foundation of Greater Philadelphia. Tom had added a personal note to be read with the will. This fund honors my late wife Grace, who believed education was a right, not a privilege. She spent her life opening doors for young people who just needed someone to believe in them. This fund will continue her work. It's clean, Tom said. Legal. Uncontestable given the documentation of Jessica's own declaration that you're not related. I signed the final page with Grace's favorite fountain pen, the one I'd given her for our 20th anniversary. The ink flowed dark blue, permanent as my decision. That afternoon, Tom and I reviewed the first scholarship applications. The Community Foundation had kept quiet files on students Grace had helped before she died, kids who still needed support. Tom had reached out to her old colleague, Mrs. Chun from the library, who'd continued Grace's Saturday tutoring sessions. These two, I said, circling names on the list. Anthony and Maria. Anthony lived with his grandmother, worked nights at a warehouse to pay rent. His essay about wanting to become a teacher made my chest tight. Maria was supporting 3 younger siblings while trying to finish her nursing degree. Her grades were perfect despite everything. Grace would have chosen them, I said. She always had a radar for the kids who were drowning, but too proud to ask for life preservers. We'll set up the initial disbursements today, Tom said. The foundation will notify them this week. Full spring semester covered, plus a monthly stipend for expenses. I thought about Jessica at their age, never wanting for anything. Private tutors, test prep courses, every advantage money could buy. And still she'd grown up to deny her own father to save a few dollars. Set up the disbursements, I said. Today, I signed the last document at 3:47 p.m. on December 9th, 2024. Tom's assistant notarized everything, her stamp making it official. The sound of that stamp hitting paper felt like a judge's gavel. Final, decisive, just. Something unclenched in my chest. Not triumph exactly, but rightness. Like when you finally put a crooked picture straight on the wall. Tom filed the documents in his safe. Copies went into sealed envelopes with dates that couldn't be argued later. It's done, Tom said. The fund is established. The will is updated. Everything is legal and binding. I stood to leave, and the room spun slightly. Just fatigue, I told myself. The pneumonia had taken more out of me than I'd admitted. But this was done. Grace's legacy was safe. On the ride home, a chill worked its way up my left arm. Probably just the December cold seeping through the taxi's heating system. But by the time I reached my front door, I knew something was wrong. The key shook in my hand. The doorframe seemed to tilt. I made it to my couch before the world went gray at the edges. The last thing I remember thinking was that at least the papers were signed. At least Grace's fund was safe. Back in the hospital. Different room, same fluorescent lights. The young doctor explained about the heart attack. Mild but concerning given your recent pneumonia. I half listened, watching the sunset paint the walls orange through the window. The nurse adjusted my blanket, checked the foredrip. You have any family we should call? No, I said, and for the first time, it didn't hurt to say it. No family. She looked at my chart, probably seeing Jessica's name from my previous stay. But she didn't push. Healthcare workers see enough family drama to know when not to ask questions. The beeping of the monitors had a rhythm like a countdown. Not scary, just factual. My body was tired, had been tired since Grace died, really. Fighting pneumonia, then a heart attack. Even steel wears down eventually. Between one breath and the next, I felt finished. Not defeated, complete. Like the last sentence of a book you're satisfied to close. I'd built my life, loved my wife, raised my daughter as best I could. And when she'd shown me who she really was, I'd protected Grace's legacy from her greed. I closed my eyes with Grace's name on my tongue, and this time, I didn't wake up. From wherever I was, I could see the funeral home filled with flowers that cost more than most people's rent. Jessica had arrived in a black dress that probably cost $2,000, designer sunglasses hiding dry eyes. She moved through the crowd like visiting royalty, accepting condolences with practiced grief. Such a devoted daughter, someone whispered. She was at the hospital constantly. If they only knew she'd been there twice in 2 weeks, both times to ask about my will. She hugged strangers longer than she'd ever hugged me, dabbing at tears that never quite appeared. The performance was Oscar-worthy. The grieving daughter, tragically orphaned, bravely carrying on. People ate it up like free cake at the reception. She'd positioned herself in the front row, of course. The prime spot for the mourning family. The same woman who'd legally declared we weren't related now claimed the chief mourner's throne. The irony would have made me laugh if I could have. After the prayers and eulogies, mostly from people who barely knew me, Tom stood up in his charcoal suit. The immediate family is asked to step into the side room, he announced, for the reading of Mr. Hayes' will. Jessica stood immediately, smoothing her designer dress, probably calculating property values in her head. The side room had a mahogany table polished to mirror brightness. Jessica sat at the head, like she was presiding over a board meeting. A few distant cousins filled other chairs, plus Tom's assistant with her recording equipment. The envelope sat in the center of the table, like an accusation. Tom opened it with the practiced calm of someone who delivered both wonderful and terrible news over the years. He cleared his throat and began reading in his steady lawyer voice. I, Walter James Hayes, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament, revoking all previous wills and codicils. Jessica leaned forward, fingers drumming silently on the table. She'd worn her mother's pearls, Grace's pearls, the ones she'd asked to borrow 5 years ago and never returned. First, I wish to address the disposition of my estate, Tom continued, turning a page with deliberate slowness. The room held its breath. Even the cousins W. The Grace Hayes Memorial Scholarship Fund, Tom repeated, his voice filling the silence, will receive the entirety of my estate, including but not limited to the house at 47 Maple Street, all investment accounts, life insurance policies, and personal savings. He explained the structure like an architect describing blueprints. How the community foundation would manage it. How recipients would be chosen. How Grace's Saturday tutoring sessions would live on through kids who just needed a chance. The fund will provide full tuition, books, supplies, and living stipends for qualifying students from the neighborhoods Grace served. Selection criteria will prioritize financial need, academic potential, and the determination Grace always recognized in young people who just needed someone to believe in them. No drama in Tom's voice. Just facts, laid out like evidence. He listed assets by category: real estate, securities, cash accounts. Every penny Jessica had been counting on, now redirected to honor the woman whose jewelry she wore while denying her father at the hospital. Furthermore, Tom continued, the fund has already begun operations. 2 students have been selected for spring semester support: Anthony Williams and Maria Santos. Their tuition has been paid, their books purchased, their stipends arranged. Jessica's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The color drained from Jessica's face like someone had pulled a plug at the bottom of a sink. Her carefully applied makeup stood out against skin gone paper white. The cousins shifted in their seats, a few pulling out phones, probably already texting this drama to family members waiting outside. She looked around the room as if searching for a hidden camera, like this might be some elaborate prank. But Tom's face remained professionally neutral as he continued reading. There must be a mistake, Jessica finally managed, her voice cracking on the last word. I'm his daughter. His only child. That house. Mom and I picked out that wallpaper together. Tom slid a folder across the mahogany table. These are the certified documents, signed and notarized on December 9th, 2024. You'll note the date. She grabbed the folder, fingers trembling as she flipped through pages. Her eyes darted across the legal language, searching for some loophole, some error that would make this nightmare stop. This can't be legal, she said. He wasn't in his right mind. The pneumonia, the heart attack, he was sick. Confused. Mr. Hayes was examined by Dr. Morrison on December 9th, Tom replied calmly. The doctor certified he was completely competent. It's all documented. Tom pulled out another document, this one with the hospital's letterhead. There's also this, a financial responsibility form from Mercy General Hospital, dated December 3rd, 2024. Jessica went absolutely still. According to this form, you declared to the hospital that you and Mr. Hayes were not related. You checked the box marked, not a family member, and signed your name. Tom's voice remained steady, factual. This was before any changes to the will were made. The timeline sat between them like a loaded gun. December 3rd, Jessica denies being Walter's family. December 9th, Walter updates his will. December 14th, Walter dies. December 17th, the will is read. I was trying to protect his assets, Jessica said desperately. Medical bills can destroy someone's savings. I thought. You thought he was dying. Tom interrupted, still calm. You thought you'd inherit everything. So you protected the money by denying your relationship. Except he didn't die then. He lived long enough to make his own decision about his legacy. The cousins were recording now, phones barely concealed. Tomorrow this would be on social media, spreading through their circle like wildfire. The devoted daughter exposed as a fraud. The lawyer read the closing line, Walter's reason. Tom adjusted his glasses and read the personal note Walter had included. Legacy belongs where love lived. This fund is my home carried forward. It will do what Grace did. Help young people who just need someone to believe they deserve a chance. This is not done from spite, but from standard. Grace is standard. Love standard. No accusation in the words, but they hit like hammers anyway. The room exhaled collectively. Someone whispered. He turned pain into a door. Others nodded, seeing it clearly now. This wasn't revenge. It was redirection. Taking love from where it was denied and placing it where it would be multiplied. The fund begins with over $1 million, Tom continued. It will provide $20,000 annually in scholarships, potentially supporting dozens of students over time. The first recipients have already been notified. A cousin in the back raised her phone, recording openly now. This is beautiful, she said. Aunt Grace would have loved this. Jessica's carefully constructed image of the grieving daughter was crumbling in real time. The cousins who'd offered condolences an hour ago now looked at her with something between pity and disgust. The woman who'd denied her dying father to save money had lost everything to honor the mother she claimed to revere. Outside the funeral home, the narrative shifted like sand under waves. People who'd been offering Jessica condolences now gathered in small groups, discussing the scholarship fund. Grace's name was on everyone's lips. Memories of her tutoring their kids, lending textbooks, making sandwiches for study groups. Grace taught my son algebra, an older woman said. Spent every Saturday with him until he understood it. She bought my daughter's chemistry book, another added. never asked to be paid back. The story transformed from a daughter's loss to a husband's tribute to his remarkable wife. Jessica stood alone by the door, while conversations flowed around her like she wasn't there. The black dress that had commanded sympathy an hour ago now looked like a costume that everyone could see through. She cornered Tom by his car, her voice low and venomous. "This isn't fair. I'm his blood. That money should be mine." "Fairness," Tom said, unlocking his car door, "is a funny thing to bring up now. I'll contest this will. I'll prove he wasn't competent." "You're welcome to try," Tom said. "But remember, you're the one who signed a legal document claiming you weren't his family. Hard to contest the will of a stranger." Tom pointed to his briefcase. "Every document is dated, notarized, and witnessed. December 3rd, you signed that form. December 9th, your father, fully competent and examined by his physician, changes his will. The timeline is crystal clear. But I was trying to save money," Tom finished. "Yes, we know. So did your father, apparently. He saved 47 years worth of money, and now it's going to kids who need it." A reporter from the local paper approached, having heard about the scholarship fund from someone's social media post. "Excuse me, are you Jessica Hayes? I understand your father established a major scholarship fund." Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The reporter continued, "The Grace Hayes Memorial Scholarship. What can you tell me about your mother's educational work? This is such a beautiful tribute." Tom smoothly intercepted. "The fund honors Grace Hayes, who spent decades tutoring underserved youth in Philadelphia. Mr. Hayes wanted her work to continue. The first two recipients have already been selected. And you support this?" The reporter asked Jessica, recorder extended toward her face. She had no choice but to nod, forcing a weak smile. Of course, Mother would have wanted this. The newspaper ran the story 3 days later. Local man's $1 million gift honors late wife's legacy. A photo of Grace from the library archives, surrounded by students, all of them smiling over textbooks. The article mentioned the fund size, its mission, and the first two recipients. Anthony Williams was quoted, "I can't believe it. Mrs. Grace used to help me with homework when I was little. Now her husband's making sure I can become a teacher. It's like she's still watching out for us." Maria Santos had cried when interviewed. "This changes everything for my family. I can finish nursing school without choosing between tuition and my siblings' food." Jessica wasn't mentioned except as survived by one daughter. The story belonged to Grace now, and to Walter's decision to honor her. The narrative had completely escaped Jessica's control. She wasn't the grieving daughter anymore. She was a footnote in a larger story about love, legacy, and the kids who deserved both. Tom called me to report that Jessica had consulted 3 lawyers about contesting the will. All 3 had told her the same thing. The hospital form she'd signed was a gift to her father's case. She'd legally declared herself a stranger. Strangers don't inherit estates. The reporter had asked about the scholarship launch event. I could picture it all perfectly, even from wherever I was now. The community center where Grace used to tutor. Anthony and Maria, standing at the podium, holding their scholarship letters. The room full of people who remembered Grace teaching their kids, feeding them, believing in them when no one else did. Jessica sitting in her apartment, the one she could barely afford now without expectations of inheritance, reading about the launch in the paper, seeing photos of students crying with joy, talking about how Mrs. Grace's kindness was still changing lives. She'd kept Grace's pearls, but lost Grace's legacy. Kept the jewelry, but lost the joy. The house on Maple Street would be sold, the proceeds feeding the fund. The furniture Jessica had picked out, the wallpaper she'd chosen with her mother, all of it converted to tuition and textbooks for kids who'd appreciate every penny. Somewhere, 2 young people were opening emails that changed everything. Anthony would become the teacher he dreamed of being. Maria would finish nursing school and support her siblings. Others would follow. Year after year, Grace's love multiplying through strangers who'd become family through education. And Jessica? She finally understood what she'd lost. No courtroom drama, no public confrontation, no screaming matches or slammed doors. Just a will reading that revealed the truth and a fund that would outlive us all. Jessica didn't just lose money. She lost the story she'd tried to write over my life. The Grace Hayes Memorial Scholarship would grow beyond the initial $1 million. Tom had built-in provisions for additional donations. People who remembered Grace's kindness would contribute. In 10 years, 20 years, her name would be synonymous with opportunity for kids who just needed someone to believe in them. The memorial service ended with people sharing stories about Grace. Her tutoring sessions that ran late because she wouldn't leave until everyone understood. The sandwiches she'd make for hungry students. The textbooks she'd buy with her own money. Each story another brick in the monument I'd built to her memory. Jessica had slipped out during the stories, unable to face the mother she'd claimed to love while denying the father who'd loved them both. She'd worn Grace's pearls to my funeral, but she'd never wear Grace's character. My wife's name left that room taller than it had entered. The fund was established, the students were chosen, the future was secured. Justice, signed and sealed, exactly as planned. Grace's love would outlive us all, reaching kids she'd never meet, but would have loved anyway. And that was better than any inheritance.